Copenhagen, an urban marvel marinated in centuries-old royal history and avant-garde culture. The capital of Denmark is often overlooked as a vacation destination, but this fantastic city is overflowing with beautiful sights, interesting activities, and some stellar nosh. If there's one thing that rivals my passion for a succulent Danish pastry here, it's this pristine Nordic landscape where countryside meets cityscape meets coastline. From pottering along the cobblestone streets to the modern windswept harbours and cutting-edge haute couture cuisine, Copenhagen is that intoxicating blend of past meets present and a sensational place to visit. Trust me when I say there are more than enough things to do in Copenhagen. In fact, that's why we're all here today. So put on your best pair of wanderlust-ridden boots as we journey through a top 10 list that promises you an unforgettable experience from this love letter to the capital of Denmark. Drive into the pumping heart of Copenhagen and you'll find the King's Garden on the grounds of Rosenborg Castle. This is the oldest and most popular public park in Copenhagen, and it's not just a nice green space, which it is. Frankly, it's among the nicest parks in the country, but it's also a great place to enjoy an impromptu history tour. Once a series of pleasure gardens for the Danish monarchy, the King's Garden is about 30 acres and sees over 2.5 million visitors every year. As well as plenty of space to sprawl out in the sun or have a kickabout, there are many paths to walk and bike to admire the garden and the notable architectural treats on display. Apart from the stunning Dutch-inspired Rosenborg Castle, building buffs will want to check out the barracks, the castle manager's residence, the commandant's house, and the famous Hercules Pavilion. But that's not all. The King's Garden is also a popular performance venue during the toe-tapping Copenhagen Jazz Festival, and they also host movie nights. While you're in this neck of the woods, you really should spend at least a little time checking out Rosenborg Castle. Immersed in history, this 400-year-old palace was designed and built in the Dutch Renaissance style, and has periodically served as a residence for Danish kings and regents. In many ways, Rosenborg Castle is to the Danes what Westminster Abbey and the Tower of London are to the British, in the sense that it is the home of Denmark's coronation throne, as well as the Danish crown jewels and royal regalia. You can see these priceless national artifacts on a tour of the castle. A special note, don't forget to take snaps of the Long Hall, more commonly known as the Knight's Hall. Festooned with tapestries, frescoes, carvings, paintings, and royal accents just about everywhere, this royal receiving room and banquet hall is something to behold. The story of the Little Mermaid is one of Denmark's most famous and celebrated exports. The brainchild of legendary Danish author Hans Christian Andersen, this fairy tale / potential allegory for homosexuality has struck a chord for generations, so it seems fitting that Hans and his most significant work is honoured in the Danish capital. You want to see the Little Mermaid? Not the Disney movies, or the Soviet one, obviously. Well, you can find her right here in Copenhagen on the scenic Langelinje Promenade, right on the water. Copenhagen's petite maritime maiden is made from bronze and is perched on a rock, and is depicted during her transformation from fish girl to regular girl. It's actually pretty poetic, eternally posed in this transformation phase, teetering on the edge of land and sea. But honestly, once you've seen her and made the connection I just made for you just now, that's kind of it. Still, she's an obligatory stop if you've never been to Copenhagen before, and there are quite a few good seafront cafes, bars and restaurants in the neighbourhood too. The new Carlsberg Glyptotek is a simply splendid art museum where time and beauty converge. If the name sounds familiar, it's because this place was first opened by the same family who brews Carlsberg beer. This bewitching labyrinth of culture, history and art is every bit as stunning on the inside as it is outside. It's just wall-to-wall beauty and exquisite marble floors underfoot. From its collection of over 10,000 pieces, there is a wealth of different artwork to admire here, from impressionist paintings to mosaics, but the primary focus of the Glyptotek is sculpture. There is a staggering array of works here, from Auguste Rodin's sculptures to antiquities of ancient Greece and Rome. It's easy to lose track of time here. They also have a lovely garden, and the Glyptotek also hosts concerts, so check out their calendar. If I have not yet done enough to present you with magnificent architecture, exquisite artwork, and places and artifacts dear to the Danish people, forgive me. But stick around, because I'm about to knock your socks off. Let's take a step off the beaten path and witness the regal splendour of Amalienborg, the official seat and residence of the Danish royal family. At this unique castle complex, history reigns supreme amidst 4 breathtaking Rococo palaces: Christian VII's Palace, Christian VIII's Palace, Frederick VIII's Palace, and Christian IX's Palace. The harmony between exquisite architecture and history intertwines with each changing of the guard, marching in synchronized precision against the backdrop of these stately dwellings. The Royal Lifeguards closely resemble their British counterparts in dress and drill, and like their British counterparts, they won't stop if you get in their way. Explore the symmetric square, crowned by the towering Friedrich's Church and centred by the beautiful statue of King Frederick V on horseback. Within the House of Glucksburg Museum in Christian VIII's Palace, you can learn more about the current royal family and its extensions across Europe. No, I'm not stopping. You wanted palaces, you get palaces. And Christiansborg Palace is about as significant as it gets without being the home of the King of Denmark. Why? Because it's the seat of the Danish government, and if you ask me, the prettiest palace in town. This neo-Baroque marvel, sitting grand on its own island nugget, is a vast complex that includes space for the royal family, the government, and the judiciary. There's even a theatre, complete with a museum, and a riding school too. Surprisingly, it's only just over 100 years old, but the palace itself sits on the site of at least 4 other castles, including 2 former iterations of Christiansborg. You can learn more about these castles in the Underground Ruins Museum. Other key points of interest include the Palace Chapel, the gaudy throne room, the Great Hall, and the palace's crowning jewel, the Tower. There's an observation deck up there, the highest in the city, affording you 360-degree vistas of Copenhagen that stretch out like a painter's dream. Now, all the castles on this list so far have been pretty palacey, residential sorts of places. If you're looking for a real castle, something that would withstand a siege, head over to the Citadel, aka the Citadel. The Citadel is one of the world's best preserved star fortresses, meticulously manicured yet still menacingly formidable. There are 5 bastions to this fortress, each spike of the star harbouring its own functions and purpose. From barrack blocks to a functioning 19th century windmill, there are surprises at every point. Among the biggest surprises you might find here are Danish soldiers, as this public park/national monument is still an active military base. For those interested in all things army, there is a changing of the guard ceremony at midday every day, and military bands hold concerts there on summer afternoons. The University of Copenhagen Botanical Garden, usually referred to as just the Copenhagen Botanical Garden, is your passport to a horticulture-filled oasis, and a much-needed respite from all those cobblestone city streets and fancy architecture. Alright, that last bit isn't true, because this 30-hectare expanse is littered with gorgeous glass houses dating back to the 19th century. The heart of the gardens is the Old Palm House, a stunning Victorian greenhouse filled with exotic greenery. It's simply spectacular. I must say though, the garden may not appeal to the adrenaline junkies among us, though the joy you'll feel here is tangible. Whether you're a botanist at heart, a Victorian historian, or merely a heartsick wanderer, the garden promises a day out hard to come by in Copenhagen. Christian IV of Denmark wasn't just the longest serving king in Scandinavian history, but also something of a Renaissance man. Literally, as he reigned at the height of this world-changing movement. One of his keen interests was the growing science of astronomy, and so he called for the construction of an observation tower so that he and his fellow astronomers could study the heavens. Suffice it to say, architect Hans van Steenwinkel the Younger understood the assignment, and created one of the most incredible structures in Denmark. Seamlessly cobbled on to the Trinitatis Church and Library, what sets this tower apart, other than its sheer immensity, is its equestrian staircase, which is a pretentious term for ramp. Oh yeah, the round tower isn't just another brick and mortar attraction, you can ride your horse up there, or bike, or unicycle if you're interested in breaking that weird record. Today the round tower is a popular event space and tourist attraction. It's a great spot to enjoy views of the city, and there are still astronomy meetups to this day, nearly 400 years after the tower was completed. After all that history, it's high time for some hijinks, and more history. Step into the magical universe of Tivoli Gardens, one of the oldest modern amusement parks in the world at nearly 200 years old. Inspired by Victorian amusement parks in London and Paris, Tivoli was designed with accessibility in mind, to keep up with the times and be the sort of place where any Dane could find some fun for generations to come. Today, with over 30 attractions, rides and roller coasters, it's one of the most popular amusement parks in Europe. There are rides for everyone, from antique carousel organs to the infamous demon roller coaster, but also a number of cultural highlights that lend this place some real class. What's a Disney palace compared to, oh, I don't know, a real castle, eh? Tivoli is almost its own world, and you could spend your entire vacation here without leaving the park. There's a hotel on site and a partner hotel nearby, tons of dining options, gardens, event spaces, theatres, an aquarium, live music and parades, even its own lottery. Rather than just a theme park, it really is an amusement park, and the best place to round out this list. So that was the most essential spots to visit in Copenhagen, but there is so much more to see and do here. Denmark is still a bit of a secret when it comes to the world of travel, but when you're in Copenhagen, you really don't have to look hard to find jaw-dropping attractions. We'll be back here soon, just you wait and see. But for now, it's time for me to shuffle off and plan another adventure. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see more top destinations, make sure you like and subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. Until next time!